In this chapter, I will show you how I am using RenderView to get more space and even better performance. As first step, I am changing from feed window to fixed scaling, and I'm changing resolution to half, which is 50%, and zoom to 100%. And as next step, I'm changing customize snapshot to vertical layout to get even more space, and under view, I'm turning off render info. Now I can zoom even more and use all available space. And render is even more efficient if you are using region just on the place when you need to see changes. So if you are getting slow response, that's the way how to speed up your workflow. Photo references are a very important part of the creation process. They will give you many ideas and also helping with photoreal look of your renders. Even when you are creating fantasy or science fiction scenes, don't forget to gain inspiration from real objects. You need to understand basics about photography, how to correctly use camera, and how lighting affects your final result. Good source to get artistic inspiration is ArtStation, where you can find many talented artists. Aleppo Design is following many of them, so for your inspiration, here is few examples. Also, my recommendation is PureRef application, which will help you to organize your reference materials. After installation, you can use it directly with the Cinema as top-up window. You can have more than one reference inside. And in my case, I have reference window non-stop open on my second monitor. As you can see in our 3D viewport and render view, even we are not using any lights yet, Redshift using default light for scene visualization until you will start to use the Redshift lights for lighting your scene. You can turn on or turn off this feature in render settings. If we will go to the settings, Redshift, and integration, as you can see, we are using default lights. Turn off default light, and as you can see now we are not using any light, but our scene is completely dark. So for your workflow, it's better to use default light because you will always see how looks your scene, and immediately when you will start to use Redshift lights from Redshift menu, they will turn off this feature, and this feature will not anymore affecting your lighting. So let's to have a look on our first light, and you will see how it works. Go to Redshift menu, lights. Here we have our list of our lights. We will start with area light. That is the most common light. As you can see, we can move with the light. We can rotate. Area light will react on all kinds of the transformation. Also, you can scale in second axis as well, and find the spot which is working for your scene. Select area light, go to coordination, and as you can see, if you are moving in the 3D viewport, also it's changing coordination. Back to the general, if you will click on the area, which belongs to area light, again, when I'm changing the scale, you can see how we are changing size X or size Y. Bigger lights creating stronger intensity, smaller lights creating less intensity of the light. And as you can see in our render view, also position and size of the area light affecting shadows and their intensity. Click on the basic tab, and there we can see that we can change name of our light. Let's try a new light. In object tab, we can turn off or turn on our light as we need to use them. We have opportunity to change visibility in our 3D viewport. So now I turn off the light from the viewport, but still you can see that in the render view. So visible and render is on or default. Default is on, is the same thing. So now when I will switch on the off, we can't see anymore our light representation in our render view. Turn back on visible in editor, you can see your light back. Turn back visible in renderer, and you can see in the render view your light again. Also, you can change color of your light in the viewport. Choose any color, and now you can see red icon in 3D viewport of your light. Also, we can disable or enable our light, as we did already before, just on the different place. Back on the General tab, Preview section controlling only our 3D viewport. So if we will turn off wireframe, we will don't see light icon. If I would like to turn completely visibility of the light, of course I can do that in Object tab as well. But wireframe in preview will turn off just icon and will not turn entire light. Illumination is doing exactly opposite. We will see icon of the light, but we will don't see illumination of the light in the viewport. You can change also illumination adjustment, which will change intensity of your light inside the 3D viewport. Inside the General tab, we have currently mode color, so we can change color of our light. But as you can see in our render view, if you are using too much saturation, you are not getting very realistic results. So be careful about saturation and colors what you are using for your lighting. If you would like to be sure that you are using physically correct light, switch on temperature. And as you will change value of the temperature, you will easily get cold, neutral, or warm light. And as you can see in our render view, lower temperature produce warm, yellowish and reddish colors through neutral white into the bluish cold colors. And as third option is mix between temperature and color, my recommendation is find temperature with you like and use color only if you need to mix something for different kind of the feelings. And again, be careful about your color saturation to get results closer to reality. Switch back on the color mode and choose color what you like. Next we have texture, but we will have look on texture a little bit later. Next we have unit type. In my case, I'm always using image, but if you will need different kind of the unit, you know where you can find it. Next we have intensity multiplier. Higher values produce higher intensity. And lower values lowering intensity of the light. We can also use photographic exposure, which also affecting intensity of the light, but is less sensitive in terms of values, so is ideal for final touches or small changes. Next we have decay. Type inverse square is physically correct type and is working as light energy. So if we will switch to non-decay, we will get some kind of infinity light with very strong intensity. So we have to lower intensity multiplier and exposure as well to get some realistic results. Second time is linear. In linear type, we can manually set up fall of start and fall of stop. So you have full control how big follow you would like to use with your RL light. And again, you have to correct exposure or intensity until you will see in your render view results which are working for your scene. Switch back decay type to inverse square. Now we need higher intensity of multiplier and exposure to 0. So we are working again with physically correct light. As next we have area tab, which belongs just to area light, and it's not common lights parameter, so we will have look on it under section area light. Now we will have look how works textures with the lights. We need to load our texture into path, so click on the 3 dots and double click on your texture or click on open, is the same. Now we have correctly loaded our texture. And as you can see, our light projecting colors from the texture. If you don't want to use it anymore, just delete the path. And if you need to use more advanced operation, click on Add Shader Graph and you will get access to the new material which will drive your light. And you can use all features which offering to shader graph, include color correct, color layer, or even math operations. And also, as you can see, you will have full control of your light directly in shader graph. So you can again change color, turn on, turn off light, change his intensity, and you do not need to search for his parameters on any different place. If you don't want to use your shader on the light anymore, just select your shader, delete, and your light will work again as before. Next up we have Ray. Here we are controlling light contribution. So you can turn on or turn off diffuse or specular. Specular means that you don't see on your model anymore reflections from current light. And if you will turn off diffuse, it means that current light will not contribute in the diffuse anymore. Turn on back specular. Now we can see just specular. Turn on back diffuse, and now we can see full contribution of the light on our models. We can also control our contribution with the sliders. So I can easily play with the mix of the contribution from 0 to 1. So it's not necessary just turn on, turn off. You have also values between, and they're giving you nice options to mix exactly contribution as is the best working for you. So you can separately control diffuse, glossy. Glossy means reflection, single or multiple scattering, or contribution to GI. We have separate chapters for single and multi scattering, also for refraction, reflections, and GI as well, which means global illumination. So later we will much better understand what I'm talking about now. Next we have volume section. For volume or volumetric lights, we have again separate chapter when I will show you in details everything what you need to know about. About light group tab, we will talk in AOV chapter. Next is shadow tab, and in shadow section we have transparency, softness, and samples. And currently we are using area light, which is physically correct light. So here we can specify softness, but as you will see soon in other type of lights, we will be able to use softness for your shadow as well. Next we have photon tab. It's place where we will set up our caustics, but for caustic we have separated chapter. And last tab under lights is project, which works the same way as Cinema 4D project. If I will drag and drop ground inside, you can see our ground is now excluded from the new light. Delete ground and drag and drop our plane inside. The same thing now is excluded from our light. And if we will switch to include, of course it's doing exactly opposite. So you have to drag and drop into include everything what you would like to be affected by your light. Area light is one of the most important light, and under general section you can find area tab where you can find many interesting features. As first we have shape, when you can choose from different kind of the shapes or even 3D shapes as sphere. Let's to lower our intensity now. Also we can try cylinder. And as you can see in the 3D viewport, we can change size of the shape, move with the shape as you need. Always be careful that your shape is not intersecting your model. You can also rotate, and as you see after our rotation we are starting to have nice results. Current shape in the area tab menu has also size representation. You can also choose visibility for your light shape. You will use it if you need to have visible source of your light. Activate bidirectional option, go back on the rectangle, click on bidirectional, and now you can see we have area light, which is casting light both direction. One more time turn off to see difference. And now turn on bidirectional and visible as well. And in render view, you can see how it works together. Next we have normalize intensity. It's a feature which will ignore differences between smaller and larger lights, so it will ignore the scale. That's the reason why you have to start use really high values, and after that you will see correct intensity in your render view. And now I will show you if I will change scale of the light. We are changing reflection, shadow intensity and softness, area of the light, but normalize is keeping light intensity in the same values. If you do not need to use normalize intensity anymore, you will get super high intensity of the light and you will need to change intensity multiplier. But now if you will change scale of the light, you will change intensity of the light as well. Area light is physically correct light, so if you will change rotation or transformation, scale, always behaving as real light. As you see, as we are going closer to object, we are getting different results, different light intensity, and different shadow position and softness. And that's the reason why area light is so important if you would like to get nice physically correct results. Select area light in Object tab, and now we will have a look on spread parameter. As you can see in our render view, you can get sharper, less spread results, or opposite, more softer and more spread results. As last parameter we have samples. Bigger lights with more intensity needs more samples than smaller lights with smaller intensity. And now we will have a look on the mesh shape, which will use your object as light source. So drag and drop into the mesh object which you would like to use as light source, and immediately you will see results in your render view. Now let's use our plane as light source. And in the render view, you can see that instead plane, we have light representation. Important is to know that mesh lights are using much more samples than other kind of the lights. And if you like position of your light, but you would like to change for different kind of the light, you can do it as well under light type. And as you can see in our 3D viewport, now we have point light instead of our area light. Change intensity of the light, and now you can see how it's working point light in our scene. Go to Redshift menu, Lights, Dome Light. Dome light is HDR based light, so you have to link your HDR map. Choose your HDR file, and now you can see in your render view how powerful is image-based lighting. More maps you have, more power you get. For all our students, we created more than 100 HDR maps, so you can have a lot of fun if you will try to find some interesting look for your scenes. You have also control over map type, what you are using, but mostly you will stay with spherical map type. Next we have flip horizontal option, and as you can see in the render view, it's flipping horizontally your map. Next we have gamma section. To be able to control gamma, you have to use override option, and after that you will be able to increase or decrease contrast of your HDR map. If you will turn off override, your gamma changes will be not active anymore. Next we have exposure control, and we can make our lighting brighter or darker. And sensitivity depends on dynamic range of your maps. Next we have hue control. So as you can see in the render view, you can play with the hue of your colors. Next we have saturation control, so you can increase or decrease color saturation. And also you can use tint color. So as you can see in our render view, you can mix color tint with your HDR map colors exactly as you need. Only 100% white tint don't affect your HDR map colors. Next we have samples, but for samples we have separate chapters, and we will explain it in details later. Let's move to environment section. Here is the place when you are choosing visibility of your background for your renders. And as default, you see background coming from your HDR map. To see it more obvious, click on Coordination tab and rotate with your dome light. And as you can see, if you would like to change position of the light, you have to use rotation only, because again, movement or scaling doesn't affect dome light at all. And now we will turn off our background. So in your render will be no background visible anymore, but still you have full control to use all three rotation axes to find your sweet spot, which is the best working for your scene. And that's the main reason why dome light is so very often using for lighting scenes. Now we will have a look on the backplate, but if you would like to use backplate, you have to enable background, and in backplate section you have to enable backplate as well. And as next step, you have to load your image which you would like to use as backplate. And now you can see in the render view how looks your scene include the backplate. But as you can see now, if you are rotating with the dome light, your backplate is not changing position. And it's completely correct, because backplate is usually shot and your scene have to be synchronized with the shot, so you need proper camera tracking and other stuff to make them work together. In backplate section, again you have control of gamma, also exposure, color hue, saturation, and also you can change aspect ratio, you can switch from texture to render, and as last option you can apply camera exposure compensation. But to better understand how it works, I will explain in details in camera chapter. Last section is shadow section, and as you can see we have control only of transparency, so here we cannot change softness of the shadows. So how looks shadows strongly depends on your HDR map.